When Grandma died, she left behind 2 ugly little heirlooms and one final warning. In the first life, my sister grabbed the cute one, ruined herself with it, then killed me for surviving without her. In the second life, she remembered everything, took the darker gift on purpose, and still found a way to prove that greed can rot a person all the way down to the bone. After Grandma's funeral, my sister Chloe and I got called into a stale little probate office that smelled like old paper, dust, and cheap coffee. No mansion, no trust fund, no dramatic movie money reveal. Just 2 velvet boxes and a folded note in Grandma's shaky handwriting. Inside the first box was a sleepy brass cat charm. Cheap-looking thing. Curled tail, half-closed eyes, the kind of trinket you'd expect to find in a thrift store junk bin for $4. Inside the second was a black obsidian snake pendant, polished so dark it looked like it had swallowed the room's light and kept it. Grandma's note was short. One rewards patience. One rewards hunger. Both will give you what you are. Choose with your brain, not your greed. Then there was one last line, written harder, like she dug the pen into the paper just to make sure it stuck. Chloe, that selfish hunger in you will eat you alive if you keep feeding it. My sister rolled her eyes like Grandma was still annoying her from the grave. In the first life, she grabbed the cat because it was cuter and less creepy. I ended up with the snake. I barely used it because the thing felt wrong from day one. Meanwhile, Chloe overfed the cat, burned through the easy rewards, and later convinced herself my success came from stealing the better heirloom. Then she poisoned me at a celebration dinner and staged the whole thing like a robbery gone bad. So when I woke up back in that probate office with both charms still sitting there untouched, I already knew what kind of monster was sitting across from me in a black dress pretending to grieve. Rebirth doesn't feel magical. It feels like panic with memory attached. I saw the velvet boxes, saw Grandma's note, saw Chloe's fingers twitch toward the table. My chest locked up so hard I thought I might pass out right there and save everybody some time. But I stayed still. This time, Chloe didn't even glance at the cat first. That was how I knew she remembered too. She looked at me, then at the snake, then smiled this ugly little smile like she'd finally cracked some code the universe hid from her the first time around. "Cat's yours," she said with a shrug. Black was always more my color anyway. Lying bitch. In the first life, she thought the cat was the good prize. In the second, she thought she'd figured out my real secret. She believed the snake was what made me unstoppable. She thought the cat had been a cute little scam, and the snake was the true power. So she grabbed the pendant before I could even blink and cut her thumb open with her key. I let her. That was the difference this time. In the first life, I still had enough softness left to warn people. In the second, I'd already learned that some people take every warning as a challenge. So I picked up the brass cat charm, pressed my thumb into the edge of the paper until it bled, and bonded with it in silence. The cat charm warmed in my hand. The snake around Chloe's neck looked almost pleased. Here's what those heirlooms actually did. The cat didn't just spit out money for no reason. That's what Chloe never understood in the first life, because she was too damn greedy to understand anything that didn't reward her instantly. The cat rewarded patience, stability, honest effort. It strengthened whatever was already being built the right way. Sometimes that showed up as a gold coin dropped into your palm. Sometimes it showed up as perfect timing, preserved momentum, a near miss becoming a lucky break, or an opportunity lasting longer than it should have. It didn't make you rich fast. It made what was real harder to destroy. The snake was the opposite. It rewarded hunger. It drained luck, timing, momentum, and advantage out of other people and rerouted it into its owner. It made shortcuts work. It made bad bets hit. It made impossible streaks feel natural. It let greedy people rise so fast they mistook theft for destiny. But it fed on the user too. That was the hook buried under the shine. The more Chloe took, the more the snake took back. Lifespan, stability, calm, judgment, eventually sanity. In the first life, I felt that thing every time I wore it. Every good break tasted dirty. Everyone felt like it had come out of somebody else's throat. So I stopped leaning on it. I built my business the hard way instead, used the pendant only in emergencies, and kept most of my real gains far away from public eyes. That's what drove Chloe insane. She watched me rise and decided the snake had to be the reason. She couldn't imagine discipline beating greed. Couldn't imagine patience winning against appetite. So when she got her second chance, she lunged straight for the darker prize thinking she'd finally stolen the true future. And I let her. This time, I got out early. No playing big brother. No sticking around the hometown to get dragged into family bullshit. No trying to heal some relationship that was already dead and rotting under the floorboards. Within a month, I moved to another city, set up quiet accounts, built under different entities, and used everything I remembered from the future like a loaded cheat sheet. Stocks I knew would explode. Real estate I knew would triple. Companies I knew would collapse. Shipping routes I knew would matter. And I used the cat charm exactly the way Grandma intended. Carefully, patiently, almost respectfully. Sometimes the little brass thing would drop a coin into my hand when I needed one. Not a mountain of cash. Just enough. Enough to cover a gap. Enough to grease a hinge. Enough to keep momentum alive. Most of the time, though, the cat's help came through preservation. Good choices stayed good longer. Honest effort compounded harder. Projects didn't collapse over random bad luck. Solid people stayed in my orbit. Stable things stayed stable. It didn't make me flashy. It made me hard to destroy. Chloe, meanwhile, became a fucking rocket. With future knowledge and the snake draining momentum from everyone around her, she blew up online as some kind of financial oracle. 24-year-old stock prodigy, podcast guest, magazine darling, viral clips, TV hits, everybody kissing her ass because idiots will worship anything that looks like easy money. And our parents? That's when they suddenly remembered they had a daughter worth loving loudly. See, our parents were never gone. They were just selectively absent. They were the kind of people who never had energy for the boring child unless the boring child was bleeding. In the first life, they barely cared what I was building because it didn't photograph well. No flashy headlines. No glamorous interviews. No "our son the prodigy" moments they could wear around town like borrowed jewelry. But Chloe, the second she started hitting the news, they latched onto her like ticks. They started traveling with her, showing up in pictures, sitting in the background of live streams, letting her buy them things, letting her drag them into that rich girl orbit where everybody talks like they invented money. And because I stayed low, they had almost no idea what I was really building. That was on purpose. I showed just enough. A normal condo. A nice office. Modest success. Nothing loud. Nothing flashy. Nothing that made people think there was blood in the water. Meanwhile, Chloe was making noise, and our parents were feeding off it. Then she started to crack. At first it was small. Tremors in her hands. Mood swings. Public meltdowns that got hand-waved as stress. Then came the missed calls, the bad reads, the risky plays that finally stopped landing. Her face changed too. You could bury a lot with makeup, filters, and expensive skincare, but you couldn't bury all of it. There was a drained look under everything. Like somebody was chewing her from the inside out. That was the snake cashing in. And that was when my parents came looking for me. They showed up at my office pretending this was about family. Mom cried before she even sat down. Dad did the tired, practical voice he always used when he wanted to sound reasonable while saying something shameless. "Your sister's in trouble," he said. "No shit. She's sick," Mom whispered. "She needs help. Not love. Not forgiveness. Help." Interesting word. I sat there and let them talk. They told me Chloe had made mistakes. That fame had changed her. That pressure had gotten to her. That underneath it all she was still my sister, and family had to come together in times like this. That was almost impressive. The way they said all that with straight faces after years of ignoring me, unless they needed something from me too. Then the cracks showed. Dad asked where I kept my charm. Mom asked whether the cat still worked. Dad asked whether its effects could transfer if someone held it close enough. Mom said maybe Chloe didn't need it forever, maybe just long enough to stabilize. There it was. Not grief. Not guilt. A plan. They hadn't come to reconnect. They'd come to see whether the daughter they'd been leeching off could be propped back up with whatever was keeping the son they ignored standing so solidly. I leaned back and laughed right in their faces. That offended them more than if I'd screamed. "You didn't come here because I'm your son," I said. "You came because the child you bet everything on is falling apart, and now you think I'm stupid enough to hold her up again." Mom started crying harder. Dad got mad. Called me cold. Said Chloe had always been fragile. Said I'd always been the stronger one. That made me laugh again. "Funny," I said. "You never remembered I was the stronger one when she was winning." I told them to leave. They didn't. Not right away. That was the first sign they were desperate enough to get stupid. Chloe came with them the second time. That told me everything I needed to know. If they'd really wanted reconciliation, they would have come alone. Instead, they showed up with the problem wrapped in designer clothes and expensive perfume, like maybe I'd be too sentimental to notice the knife under the silk. She looked beautiful from a distance. That was the snake's last joke. Up close, she looked like death learning contour. Her smile was too wide, eyes too bright, hands unsteady. "I just want to talk," she said. "Bullshit." My parents stood behind her like they were trying to look worried and supportive, but I could see it all over them now. Hope. Calculation. Hunger. They'd spent years living under her rising star, and now that it was burning out, they'd come to siphon something from me to relight it. I should have thrown all three out on sight. Instead, I let them in. Not because I forgave them. Because I wanted them to show me exactly how low they were willing to go. At first Chloe played it soft. Said she'd been wrong. Said she knew she'd chased the wrong things. Said she was tired and scared, and just needed her brother. For half a second, a stupid old instinct twitched in me. Some dead little part of me that still remembered us being kids before greed turned her into a fucking disease. Then she stepped closer, and the snake moved. That was the tell. It tightened around her throat, lifted its head, and I felt the air in the room shift. Not physically. Worse. The weird invisible drag of good things trying to tilt away from me. Option A was dead. This was option B. If I wouldn't hand over help willingly, they'd come close enough to take what they could. Mom saw it and didn't flinch. Dad didn't either. That was the part that finished whatever softness I had left. They knew. They brought her here knowing exactly what she was trying to do. Chloe lunged. Not with some huge theatrical attack. Worse. Quick. Desperate. Hand outstretched, snake flaring, trying to get close enough for the pendant to drink. But the cat charm at my chest went warm. Not hot. Not flashy. Just steady. Calm. Grounded. Everything I'd built, every careful move, every saved dollar, every honest foundation, every wall I put up to keep parasites out, it all felt like it locked into place at once. The snake hit that wall and recoiled like it had bitten steel. Chloe stumbled, shocked. Then she tried again. That was when the cat's real gift showed itself. It didn't attack. It stabilized. Me. My life. What was mine? The snake could steal loose luck, stolen momentum, shaky victories built on lies. It could not rip through something that had been honestly built, patiently protected, and reinforced for years. The cat didn't make me lucky. It made my life difficult to shake loose. Chloe's face twisted. She understood too late. "You were never supposed to have this much," she hissed. There it was. Not apology. Not pain. Envy. My parents started shouting over each other. Mom begging. Dad saying we could still fix this. Chloe trying one more time to force the pendant closer. Then the snake made its choice. It stopped reaching for me and turned on her. Not dramatic. Not giant monster horror movie shit. Almost worse. It just started taking. All the stolen momentum. All the rigged luck. All the borrowed shine. All the years she'd ripped out of other people's futures and poured into herself. It pulled everything back through her like a wire stripping machine. She dropped to her knees screaming. Mom rushed toward her. Dad backed away, which told me exactly which one of them had ever really loved anything besides proximity to success. The snake kept feeding until Chloe looked like what she really was underneath all the borrowed glow. Not ancient, not a skeleton, just stripped, hollowed, exposed, still alive, still aware enough to understand. Which was fitting. She'd spent 2 lives trying to avoid consequences. I was glad she finally got stuck in a room with them. After that, everything collapsed fast. Police, medics, questions, crying, spinning. My father trying to act like this was all some sudden tragedy nobody could have seen coming. My mother clinging to Chloe and sobbing like she'd never spent years happily drinking from the same poison fountain. The cameras in my office got all of it. That mattered, because when Chloe recovered enough to start lying, and she did, I already had the footage. Her reaching, the snake moving, my parents staying quiet right up until they realized it wasn't going to work. By then, Chloe's public empire was already cracking too. Once her streak broke, regulators started digging. Lawsuits started landing. Investors started panicking. The media turned on her because that's what media does when the blood smell changes. The stuck queen became a cautionary tale overnight. And my parents? They tried reaching out again later, but it wasn't really to apologize. It was to salvage. To see if there was still some version of this where I'd let them back into the part of my life that hadn't collapsed. There wasn't. That was the first truly kind thing I'd done for myself in either life. I shut the door. I kept the cat, kept the quiet life, kept building. Not because I needed to prove anything anymore. Because it was mine. That was always the difference between me and Chloe. She wanted to be seen winning. I wanted something that could still stand when nobody was clapping. The charms didn't create who we were. They exposed it. Give a greedy person a shortcut, and they'll crawl inside it until it hollows them out. Give a tired, bitter bastard one small honest advantage and maybe, finally, he'll stop chasing the loudest victory and start building something that doesn't need theft to survive. Grandma knew exactly what she left us. She didn't leave behind magic. She left behind a test. And Chloe failed it in both lives. Moral: the flashy curse always looks like the stronger gift because it moves fast and makes weak people feel powerful. But anything built by draining everybody around you eventually gets hungry enough to eat you too. Sometimes the real blessing is the one that lets you keep your damn soul. Thanks for listening on Hidden Thread Teller.